Welcome to the Daybreak with Jeff Slakey podcast. I'm so happy you found us. Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this with your circle of influence. It's a collection of the interviews, news, and conversation during Daybreak with Jeff Slakey on iFiber One News Radio, KMAS, weekdays from 6 to 9. Hey, good morning to you. It's Tuesday here at iFiber One and, well, really across the land on this 22nd day of September. Morning, Spencer. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you this morning?
Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury on the air today, otherwise doing pretty good. It's getting ready for the big weather event tomorrow. I think yesterday you were reporting on 1.5 inches of rain, maybe a little bit more. I'm going to try to get a lawn mow in today and maybe try to put some natural fertilizers or things like that on the grass and see if that'll help here as we move into the fall.
Oh, yeah. Is today the first day of fall? I think today is. With this whole COVID thing, my calendar obviously is all messed up.
So what is that, the vernal equinox? Is that what's happening?
What did you call me? Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Exactly.
I'm never good at this up. But 1 or 2 inches of rain expected Wednesday, so get that under your belt fast.
Yeah. Hi, Chihuahua. Well, we got lots of news and information here to start your day. Since our last report on the show, Mason County Public Health notified of 12 additional Mason County residents testing positive for COVID-19. Total now 401 since March. Case investigations and contact tracing continue. And of course, we continue these questions and learn more and more about this pandemic. But COVID-19 spreads, according to the CDC, through mainly person to person between people who are in close contact with one another within 6 feet. That says 2 arm lengths. Respiratory droplets produced when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or talks. And we're starting to hear a little bit more back from the CDC about the airborne impacts that the virus has. Droplets can then land in the mouths or noses of people who are nearby. And I think this is the case against those face shields, Spencer, because the air can get in the sides and down under below. Yeah. And then, of course, there are those studies out there that show the spread could be by what they consider asymptomatic people not showing any symptoms. So just please be cautious, wear those masks, and continue to keep those distances if possible.
Absolutely. National Voter Registration Day is today. Secretary of State Kim Wyman encouraging all eligible Washingtonians to register to vote in time for the November 3rd general election. Eligible citizens can register online at votewa.gov using either a Washington state driver's license or ID. Votewa.gov is Washington's online voter portal that also offers ballot drop box and election office locations, a personalized voter guide, and more. People also have the option of downloading and printing a registration form, which is available in 23 languages, and sending it via U.S. mail or visiting a county elections office or voting center to register in person.
States across the country are learning from our almost 10-year tradition of voting by mail, and Lily Bolke reports.
States across the country are taking lessons from Washington's almost 10-year tradition of voting by mail. Washington is one of 5 states that sends ballots to all registered voters, with or without the pandemic, along with Oregon, Colorado, Utah, and Hawaii. Kristen Eberhard is with the Sightline Institute's Democracy Program, which gave Washington an A for preparedness. She says all states previously had some familiarity with absentee voting, but the demand has increased massively this year.
So nobody is starting completely from zero, but they are definitely learning from their fellow officials here in the West.
Ballots go out to Washington voters on October 16th and need to be returned by 8 p.m. on Election Day, either via mail or one of the state's nearly 500 drop boxes and voting centers. And there are in-person options, too, for voters who may need assistive voting devices, language assistance, or other support. Secretary of State Kim Wyman says election officials nationwide have reached out to her office for advice. She recommends that states make sure they build in security measures, signature matching, and numbered seals on envelopes. And she says it's crucial that officials have the time and capacity to process ballots and that all counties have the same standards and practices.
We have a lot of control measures, both physical and electronic, and all of those things work together to secure the system.
President Donald Trump and his allies in numerous states have opposed expanding access to mail-in voting by falsely claiming that it's more susceptible to voter fraud. But studies show instances of voter fraud are negligible. Wyman, a Republican, says Washington's is a secure and accessible system, and there's no partisan advantage.
We as election officials just have to work that whole political spectrum and try to inspire confidence in our harshest critics and our biggest supporters.
Wyman says if voters are concerned, they should contact their election officials and learn more about the process. King County, the state's most populous county, has a 24/7 live feed of the ballot processing and counting site, and ballots have unique barcodes so that voters can track their progress. For Washington News Service, I'm Lily Bolke.
Thanks, Lily. For the second time in a week, a federal judge has ordered the U.S. Postal Service to live up to its responsibilities to process election mail in a timely fashion. Monday's ruling by Judge Victor Marrero in Manhattan came after several individuals, including candidates for public office, sued. They said President Donald Trump, the Postal Service, and its new boss were endangering election mail. Marrero told litigants to settle by noon Friday, or he'll impose an order to include letting postal employees work overtime around election time. A judge in the state last week also ruled against the possible Postal Service to ensure speedy delivery of election mail. In a statement, the Postal Service said its number one priority was to timely deliver election mail.
And we are in partnership with ABC News Radio, getting ready to provide coverage of all the presidential debates and vice presidential debate. The first one, presidential, is next week. It's the 29th, a week from today. It's going to be in Cleveland, and we'll have it here for you on AM 1030 and FM 1033.
Shellfish managers have scheduled 39 razor clam digs on ocean beaches for dates extending through December. And there's another one today in this batch. 11:37 p.m. is low tide, Long Beach, Twin Harbors, Copalis. After today, you're going to have to wait a little bit until the 16th of October.
Got an email in from Department of Commerce, and it's pretty neat, actually. The state has a new economic recovery dashboard. We've got links to it on our website, and it's a tool for analyzing and visualizing data from public and private organizations to check on the impact of COVID-19 on the economy. It details on a whole bunch of different levels metrics that could help guide state and local leaders as they chart a path to equitable recovery. So you can check it out. It's through the Commerce website, but links are on our website, iFiber1newsradio.com. Coming up again today, Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury. More conversations as well. It's all here Tuesday morning, and a good morning to you.
From the iFiber One News Radio studios, you're listening to Daybreak.
Once again, good morning to you. Daybreak show here on a Tuesday, the 22nd. Getting ready to wrap up the shortened COVID season in Major League Baseball, and the playoff picture is coming clearer into focus. Marco Gonzalez threw 8 shutout innings. Evan White broke up a tight game with a 3-run homer in the 7th, and the Mariners beat the Astros 6-1 on a game heard here last night. Seattle's victory clinched the AL West title for Oakland, ending Houston's 3-year run atop the division and making the A's the first team in the majors to lock up a division crown. More Mariners baseball for the next week or so here on AM 1030 and FM 1033. Seattle Seahawks seem determined to see just how much Russell Wilson's talent and skill can carry him. Seahawks 2-0 on the season, predicated on Wilson playing some of the best football of his career and making up for a defense that continues to show deficiencies, especially when trying to protect a lead. That wild 35-30 win heard here on the radio over New England Sunday night, another showcase performance for old number 3. Seahawks have needed every bit of what Russell is bringing to make up for a defense that, again, has surrendered an eye-popping amount of yards in the first 2 games. More Seahawks football here on AM 1030 and FM 1033 this season, brought to you by Shelton Health and Rehab, Dogtown Grooming, and South Sound Appliance. More Daybreak Show coming up.
You're listening to Daybreak on iFiber One News Radio.
Well, good morning, everybody. Jeff Slakey and Spencer Hughes on the Daybreak Show, as it's time for us to get the Sheriff sit down from our community credit union. Great partners there with that. Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury, hello.
Good morning.
We are moving into amazing October, and we've got October coming up right around the corner. And over the last couple of months, we have noticed less cars on the roadway, although they're starting to pick up a little bit. And now as we move into the darker mornings, people need to kind of remember that stuff. It's been a while.
Yeah, I think this week is going to be a real time for people to think about what's happening. It sounds like we're going to start getting the big rain coming in this week on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It hasn't been raining for quite some time, or heavy rain. You know, it's when the time for the windshield wipers that people all of a sudden realize that they've got the streaks in them and maybe new wiper blades are in need. The other thing is like tire pressures and things on cars. As it gets cooler out, those things can change, especially when the temperature really drops for a long time. A lot of those safety issues. And this year, and I talked about this a little bit before, I don't know that I have not looked at the stats to be absolutely perfect, but it seems to me like this year we've had quite a few collisions, more than we've had in the past, and we'll have to pull those and look. But many of those have to do with just people going too fast. And as the darkness starts to hit, it's darker in the mornings, it's darker at night. Headlights and taillights need to be checked. All those safety things. And I think the motto is just slow down a little bit. It just seems like after everybody was stopped at home for a long time, the highways seem to be more open. People seem to start driving fast. And now you've got groups of cars in there, and people are really getting in tight behind the other person on the roadways, following too close. And just those general things of turn on your turn signal and let it click a few times. Don't just hit the turn signal and change lanes at the same time. But that little bit of warning going into the intersection, give people a little bit of time. Check the intersection. Another one that just is a tough one. I love the roundabouts and things, but you get into some of those, you got to be paying attention.
Yeah.
And I look up here at a couple of our intersections where it's the who goes first person, and they're not paying attention when they come up there. And if you just kind of look as you approach the intersection, you can kind of tell which cars have pulled up in the order you should go in. But sometimes people aren't looking, and then everybody decides to go at once.
The vehicle maintenance is a big thing. I mean, just a side note, with less driving, one of our cars, we hardly ever have started it over the last couple of months, and we've had to jump the battery a few different times. Because you're not driving it.
And tires really, the temperature hasn't quite dropped enough. It takes quite a bit of a drop for a while. But if you haven't checked the tire pressure in your car, it makes a huge difference when we go out and do drive training. It's a huge difference on a vehicle, how it handles with the correct amount of air in it that the manufacturer recommends. If you start getting especially low on those tire pressures or overly high on the tire pressure, it can really throw the handling and the braking of the vehicle off. They're set up with the modern cars especially, are set up with the anti-lock braking systems to be at the tire pressure that the manufacturer recommends. That's where they're tested at. And if you go outside of that too far on either side, you can really throw off the vehicle handling.
How much do drivers need to add to the time for braking or paying attention when it comes to these, not only the heavy rain event we're going to get later this week, 1.5 inches is a lot of rain, but even that first hour after it rains, where you were talking about the slickness of the cement.
Well, as you know, the oils can kind of sit on the roads, and if it hasn't rained for a long time, it seems that they get a little bit slicker, and you just got to be thinking the whole time, because you can't always see that. It's kind of like black ice.
Yeah.
You come into an intersection and you start to slow down. The troughs are full of water, and if it's built up, there's another one that we don't have so much here. But when you get over in the I-5 area, it used to be especially south of the brewery in Olympia there. The troughs in the I-5, they fill up with water, and you go along and you hit those, and your car almost, really wants to pull from side to side. And they try to keep those, eliminated, and the road surface is good. But when you're not used to hitting those and it throws a car a little bit, people get a little bit excited behind the wheel.
Yeah. Well, I know coming south 101 towards Olympia, just past the Little Creek as you're going up the hill.
Yes.
There's some ruts in the road there. Plus you're gassing it a little to get up the hill.
Yeah.
And you can get kind of squirrely.
You can almost tell when you're driving your car, depending on the width of your car and where the ruts are. It's almost like riding on a railroad track. It'll almost guide you. It'll pull you back and forth. And if your car is a little bit narrower or something, it pulls from lane to lane or pulls from trough to trough.
Is there anything else as you move into the fall that you'd like to remind folks do we still get people out in the water on boats in October and November? Or,
I think this year we're running a little bit later because the weather's been so nice, you know, and it's just a reminder that, the winds are going to start to pick up too. And in small craft, when you get out not very far, I mean, the lake probably not as bad unless it's a huge lake, but you get out on the saltwater somewhere, and that wind starts to come up. Those conditions change really, really fast, and it's another thing to be aware of. I think with people not necessarily being back in school, I don't know how many people are still out running around, or if everybody's at home trying to get their kids through their computer class. But there's just a whole bunch of different factors this year. I read the other day, a person posted they can't wait for 2020 to end. It can't end fast enough. It's just been an odd year for so many different things, and hopefully we just move forward safely.
Last week was Choice High School's graduation.
Yes.
I mean, it's a little later, obviously, than it normally has been, but I was over there talking to Principal Anderson, and it's still an important closure milestone.
Oh, sure it is. Yeah, I have. My wife actually teaches there.
Yeah.
So yes, it is. I've been to a few of those graduations, and it's a tough go sometimes when it's a different time of the year, I think. But it is a tremendous milestone, a tremendous accomplishment to finish that. And that's really proud of all the kids in the district that are struggling through. And in going into this next year, I think it's going to take a lot of patience on both the part of the students and the teachers and the parents as well, because it seems like there's a pretty tough struggle.
Yeah.
I used to teach school. And I would be fine.
I mean, how do you think you'd do with all these Zoom classes?
Not good. Not good. I just that wouldn't work for me. It's so difficult not to be in the classroom doing things. But I'm not savvy enough to set all that stuff up on the computers. And a couple of people in our office, one of our guys, his wife's a teacher, and she teaches first grade. And I'm thinking, how do you do first grade anyway? But I've done it before, but how do you do that on a computer with all these different little faces on the screens and all this stuff going on? That's going to be a tough go for them.
Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury during the Sheriff Sit Down, presented by our Community Credit Union. Thank you.
Thank you.
iFiber One News Radio, 1030 KMAS and FM 103.3 presents Daybreak.
Well, good morning to you. Daybreak show here on a Tuesday. Morning, Spencer.
Hey, good morning. What's going on?
Hard to believe this. This is a show Stephanie and I used to watch when it was on 10 years ago. And although we weren't necessarily right in the age demo for this, it was a powerful show to watch. And I think for those around the age group, it made some serious impacts on their decision-making skills. 10 years since MTV first launched 16 and Pregnant, and they're about to do it all over again. So last week, the network announced it's bringing back this series for a 6-episode season. So on top of sharing the young mother's perspective, it also includes those affected by it. This showed 16 and Pregnant, then it had like Teen Mom and Teen Mom 2. We watched a lot of these shows when they were on, and it was at times gut-wrenching to see how these kids, still kids themselves, are, after life choices, thrust into parenthood.
Yeah.
And at 16, you are still very young, and you're dealing with so many emotions. And then for the female, of course, on top of that, all the biological changes when it comes to incubating a baby, basically. And then the fathers on these shows, all usually, 16-year-olds as well, and young, and just the struggle that these people had together. And so we followed these shows for a while and watched them with interest. And again, we weren't the demo for this. It was for, young teens, obviously. And I believe they did a lot of studies afterwards and everything, and these shows really helped reduce the number of teen pregnancy rate down to record lows.
Wow.
It kind of all followed in line, too, with the MTV's true life. They would have these really powerful documentaries on that channel. And for a lot of kids, they were very eye-opening. I know it's not like the most funnest topic. It's kind of a real, behind the scenes. Oftentimes you don't talk about this stuff in public, but these shows really, I think, went a long way to show the 9 months plus after of that decision that these couples made. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. And what does this mean here? Because it says this time around it will also include the perspective of those affected by it. Was it mainly the perspective of just the mom in the original series? Did you see like the boyfriend or the parents or the other parents?
The parents, I mean, it was a lot of the mom's parents that were there to, drive the pregnant mother to the doctor's office, because times the other kids didn't even have their driver's license.
There's a good thing here that in earlier times, and I'm not condoning, having a kid when you're 16, obviously, but you and I both know in earlier times there was a lot more intolerance to this from the point of view of the parents. That's why I was wondering about that, because it was something that didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't hear about it. You didn't talk about it. Girls who got pregnant quit school and they just, you know what I mean? You didn't hear about them until years later and stuff. And now people are just realizing it's not something you want to intentionally do, obviously, to start a family at age 16. Nobody's saying that. And I think a lot of people misrepresent these shows, that it's glorifying it. But as a viewer yourself, you can attest that this isn't glorifying this at all, right? It's showing kind of the tragedy of it and the turmoil and all the tribulations of it.
I mean, obviously there are beautiful parts when they show the birth of the baby and if everybody comes together, but out of, 10 stories that they share, I think, 8 or 9 of them either end in the separation of the couple, or if they got married, then a quick divorce. And I think that was a thing too, is when it came on, people were saying, oh, you are glorifying this. It's going to make it look so attractive to have a kid. And it really did not. There were a lot of scenes of, these new parents trying to feed the baby while at times having to do homework or, things like that. It really showed the other side of all this issue. It's not just the fun and the flings that you have in a young budding relationship.
Right.
It's all of that responsibility that now you are an adult taking care of another human being.
Yeah, that's where the compassion of the parents comes in too, where the kids need help. They can't. It's not a matter of not wanting to do it by themselves. They can't. They're 16.
Yeah. It's amazing. It'd be interesting to see what the impact is from the new series that starts October 6th on MTV. More Daybreak Show coming up. Thank you so much for listening to today's Daybreak with Jeff Slakey podcast. Again, I'm so happy and honored you found us and chose to listen. Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this with your circle of influence. It's a collection of some of the interviews, news, and conversation during Daybreak with Jeff Slakey on iFiber One News Radio KMAS, weekdays from 6 to 9. Thank you so much again, and talk with you next time.